Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about why I don't
Oh, he made Fallout 1 and 2. Thank you. I forgot.
play online games much anymore. And I'm
Fair.
particularly talking about multiplayer. And I did it for a long time. I mean, multiplayer games have been around for a long time. I'm not just talking about, giant MMOs. Even the consoles that started coming out in the late 70s, like the Atari VCS, it supported a lot of two-player games and even a lot of four-player games. And most of the consoles back then did. They usually had two ports in the front, and frequently the second port could have a tap that would allow multiple controllers. So
But this is talking specifically about online. Because I was about to say, I don't know, man. Playing with your friends that you know is completely different than playing with strangers.
that's how you would play two and
Yeah.
four people games. And then in the late 80s,
screens.
and I have a whole video on this, I really got into MUDs, especially LP MUD. And that's something you play online. It was just a text-based game, but I was playing that with dozens of people simultaneously from all over the world. And that was really exciting, and it really made me...
When I was in middle school or primary school, there was an online based game that was text based, but like it was a zombie apocalypse and you could like occupy spaces. It's been so long, I don't remember what it was called, but it was actually kind of cool. I don't remember what it was called though.
I think this is what multiplayer can do.
Yeah.
Then in the mid-90s, when I was at Interplay, we used to get together one night a week. I called it the Thursday night thing. And we would play 5-person Super Nintendo, one controller in the first tap, and then 4 controllers in a multi-tap into the second port. We'd play 5-person Super Nintendo games. We would play... we had
so
Lynxes,
cute.
Atari Lynxes, and those supported a ton of 2- and 4-person.
God, I loved playing Pokemon Stadium with my friend. Her parents were like well off and they had like all the consoles basically. Nintendo 64, they had an Atari, but we never played on it. It was too old. They had a GameCube, they had a PlayStation. I think they had one of the original, like the old one, what is it called? The old Nintendo, the one that was before the Nintendo 64. Her grandma had it, but they basically never played on it until there was the SNES. Yes, she had a SNES, but we never really played on it because it was old as frick. Yeah, it was at her grandma's house.
Games, and quite a number of 6-player games, and even 1 or 2 8-player games. So we were playing multiplayer a ton. Then in the 90s, especially the late 90s, Ultima Online and EverQuest came out. And that just was like mind-blowing. Thousands of people on a server. Graphical.
Wow.
Just so much fun. In fact, I have a whole video about EverQuest is in my top 5 games ever. I mean, I loved EverQuest. But I don't play games like that anymore. And people try to get me to play games, and they were like, hey, I thought you liked, and they list all these games. And I realized that there's 3 big things that make me stop playing multiplayer games. The first one is grouping with people. The second one is all the griefing that happens. And then unrelated to the griefing, the third one is a lot of toxicity. And I'll talk about why that's different than the griefing. Griefing is kind of toxicity, a form of toxicity, but it's a very specific form.
I think when you get older, you just don't want to deal with it anymore, in my opinion. I think when you're a little kid, griefing and trolling, it's a lot more fun.
So the first one I want to talk about, grouping. When I first started playing MMOs, it was super fun to play with people, and most of them are designed that you can't solo past a certain level in your class or past a certain area. Now, some of the classes, I'll talk about EverQuest for a second. Some of the classes like Druid and Necromancer, you could solo well past where the other classes could solo, because these classes were fairly powerful and they had a pretty powerful pet. Or with Druids, you could move really quickly and you had lots of spells that you could cast while moving. lots of dots. So it was called kiting, where you just ran in front of the monster and dotted it to death. You could do that, but that's not really what they were designed for. In fact, a lot of the content was designed to require groups. There were dungeons you were not going to ever solo in. There were whole planes of existence and raids that you were never going to solo. In fact, they required sometimes way more than the 5-person group. So it kind of makes sense. It's an MMO. It's a multiplayer online experience.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't like grouping with people, but I like grouping with friends. I don't like doing it with randoms. I used to be able to sit through and play with pugs for hours at a time when I was like a kid, and I did not care. But now I'm like, I can't do it anymore, man. It just pisses me off.
It's designed to be grouped.
With randoms.
Finding a group could be a pain in the butt. Guilds were really poorly supported back then. It was some of them you could tell was an afterthought. There weren't a lot of tools for making a guild, contacting your guild, organizing a guild, finding what guilds were available. These are some of the things I wanted to try to tackle in WildStar when I got a chance to make an MMO later. So just finding a guild could be tough. So I frequently just had a regular group. Here's me and 4 or 5 people who would like to play regularly. But picking a day where you and 5 other people could always meet, that was hard. Getting them to all log in at the same time.
Yeah, playing Dungeons and Dragons with 5 people is insanely hard. I played Dungeons and Dragons like a couple of times, and eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. I think the only time you can really do that stuff is if you're really, really into it and you're really dedicated, or you have friends that live nearby, because it's so annoying gathering people to do stuff online. So I kind of get it.
It was a nightmare. You'd often say, let's play at 9. Of course, you'd log in at 9 and no one would be there. But by like 9:15, still some people weren't there. And then 9:30, some people are there, but now some of the group is off shopping. They're like, hey, I'm going to go buy and sell some materials, or, oh, I forgot I logged out on the other side of the world. I have to run there. It'll be another 10 minutes. So sometimes you could wait 45 minutes just for your group to get started, and you only have a 2-hour window that you agreed on, because some of them have to leave. You know, they've got a job, or like,
they have
I told my spouse I'd be done
kids.
at 11 p.m., so I'm tapping out at 11. And especially if that person who can't play is someone you absolutely need in the group, it's like, we can't play without the tank, we can't play without the healer. Yeah, you pretty much stop playing. And also, I will admit myself, I often felt overcommitted. Like sometimes I'd come home and it's Wednesday and it's the weekly MMO night. I just don't feel like playing. I had a rough day. I don't really feel like diving in. But
yeah, you're not putting in 100%. 8 jobs, 4 wives, 10 kids. Can't play until 2 a.m. I don't know. It's a difficult solution, because it's like with how with the archetypes of MMOs, there's a big issue with how you have to have a healer, you have to have a DPS, you have to have a tank. Yeah, I don't know. It just got really, really old after a while. That's why I preferred games that didn't have that kind of stuff in it.
if I don't log in, they can't play. Because maybe I'm the damage dealer. Maybe I'm the crowd control guy. So if I don't log in, they can't play. So you feel committed to doing it. And so it starts to feel like, is this fun? Or is this a second job I picked up? Another feature of a lot of MMOs, and even multiplayer games in general, is there are areas that, because you have to do them as a group, you sometimes have to redo them, because if on your first playthrough you didn't get far enough, you may have to restart. If you log out, the thing repopulates. And sometimes it's even...
At my most degenerate, I remember, I think in Legion, it came out that Demon Hunters could use transmog to get the glaives for Illidan. I really, really wanted it, and I spent 6 hours in LFR just bashing my head into the wall and getting the achievement just so I could do that. And at the time, it was really, really ass, because it was really unbalanced and people are stupid. And I sat in LFR for 6 hours. No joke. I remember I started it at like 9 o'clock in the morning and I finished at like 4 or 5 p.m. It was so bad. 6 hours. I don't have that kind of time anymore.
Worse than that, there was an area in EverQuest called Befallen that you had to play and get a key to open the next part of the dungeon.
That's normal for mog farming? No, this is not normal for mog farming. This is me sitting in a dungeon group for 6 hours. Like, just people would leave and they would quit, and I would refuse to, give up the group because we were getting really, really close, man. It was horrible. It was really boring. Took 2 weeks off to farm Scalable. That's completely different because you have like PvP in between, and it's more fun doing Scarab Lord farming. I'm talking about 6 hours in a raid with stupid people that don't know how to do mechanics, and you're fucking pissed off because you're not getting anywhere, and you sat through it anyway.
If you didn't get that key when you were going through, then if you left and said we'll see you all next Wednesday, you have to play the whole dungeon again to try to get that key. And I don't know if it was Befallen or other ones, but some of them had keys that didn't survive if you logged out. Meaning, you not only had to get the key, you pretty much had to do the dungeon in one long...
See, I think that's an issue with system design. You shouldn't lose a key or whatever. You should never have that happen. If you log out, you lose it. It's like, dude, people have lives.
Play session. And if you didn't, you had to restart it next time. So sometimes redoing content like that, it got kind of boring after a while. And it led to a second problem of syncing content. If one person missed a night, they may not be able to rejoin you. Now, with the Befallen one, that was fine. If one person came late or hadn't joined, as long as one person had the key, he could let everybody in. But if they hadn't played for a while and their level was suddenly too low, there was some really tight level capped things or level.
If an MMO rips you out of being immersed and it starts feeling like a job, that's when it's really, really annoying. I don't like MMOs like that. If you're immersed and you're grinding and playing and having fun on the game and you don't realize that you're wasting your time, that's when it's a great MMO. Logging in to do dailies or you missed a window, now you have to restart, that's when I start getting pissed off and frustrated.
Restrictions in EverQuest, and especially every 5 levels you seem to get a lot more powerful.
Yeah.
One person misses, gets a couple levels behind, they may not be able to join you again, maybe ever again. So that was a tough thing to keep your group synchronized. So as if all that wasn't bad enough, griefing became a huge problem in Ultima Online and in EverQuest. Now,
those games are really fucking old, man. Those games are really fucking old, man.
Don't get me wrong. People
I never played Ultima or
griefing
EverQuest
forever. There was griefing on LP Mods. People used to grief on the Lynx games all the time. There was a game called Slime World and let you find a mega bomb, and people used to go, throw mega bombs at people just to blow up them rather than take out the monsters. They were just trying to take out the other players. And yes, that happened. But when you're playing in the same room with people, they tend to cut that out after a while. Not in MMOs. Once people became anonymous like that, they became kind of like jerks. And the early MMOs seemed unprepared for it. But looking back at it now, I think what they really were unprepared for, they weren't surprised griefing happened, but they were surprised at the cleverness of the techniques people used to grief and the absolute sheer volume of the griefing that happened. People found ways to grief that they didn't anticipate, even though...
Well, if you look at real life examples, people will go around like avoiding the law and tote the line just to get away with it. I'm genuinely not surprised. My mom got griefed at EverQuest by a guild all day. Ended up being my brother trolling her. Oh my god, dude! No shit! Your own brother griefed your mom? Now that's fucked.
You could mark it
That's
so like
horrible.
these players can't be attacked or killed by another player. They would do things like train a guard or get in combat with another monster and then bring it over near you and now you're involved. And if they were higher level than you, they could train a guard onto you. The guard can't hurt them, but it would destroy you. That happened a lot. People also found ways to trick people.
I mean, that happened in WoW too, but then they fixed it like a few times. I feel like there's a difference between griefing and like bugging the game out and then not doing it as playing as intended. Like kiting the world boss and then like that getting fixed. And then you just couldn't do it anymore. I think it's fine to like, you know, do it once and then it like gets fixed. It gets fixed. Yeah.
Where they would say, hey, let's do a trade, and they put items in, and then you put your money up, and then they pull the item off and hit trade.
That's RuneScape in a nutshell, though. Come on! Yo, trade scams? Oh my god, that was... I don't know, man. I knew a lot of people who do that kind of shit, and they learned a lot. It happened to me once and I never did it again. It's like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like a skill issue. You get scammed in real life too. You do. Diablo 2 was great for that. Yeah, in Diablo 2, I remember I was a little kid. I had a rare rune and the guy was trading me something and my brother was like, okay, I'm gonna like go back to what I was doing. And I got scammed and I was like, I don't know, man. I never trusted anyone again, but you just learn.
And bam, you're out of your money. They would do things called corpse runs because, you know, if you die, they're like, hey, I'll bring your corpse to you. Just give me permission to drag it. And as soon as you give them permission to drag it, that also gave them permission to loot it, which you could argue was a really bad design. But a lot of people...
Yeah, that is a terrible design. And so was RuneScape. Eventually, they had to patch it out because people... There was also probably latency delays as well. That's an issue. Why did you say you scam people in the WoW in the past too? Yes. I did scam a few times, but it kind of got boring. I actually played the auction house way more because it was boring scamming people. Yeah. Yeah, latency delays specifically in like trading situations is... I feel like that's just the issue with the game itself, like the system.
People didn't know that. They just thought, oh, I'm letting them have permission to drag it. They'd then go find their body. They go grab the body and take stuff off of it. Even if they only could get permission to drag it, they would do things like drag it into a lava pool. So there was no way you were going to get it back. So now you've lost all your things. So even when they restricted...
So don't trust people. It's like, oh... You can't trust everyone in real life either. I don't know. You learn once the hard way, and hopefully you don't do it again.
To just dragging. They can still grief you. People were clever. In some ways, I looked at this, wow, people spent half this much cleverness in their real life. They'd be millionaires. But
there are
the thing that was weird is...
There are a lot of millionaires that scam people. They just don't tell everyone how... They don't tell everyone how they do it.
Even without griefing, people found ways to be absolutely annoying. I had heard from some of my group that I played EverQuest with were women, and they said their female characters got harassed all the time. So when we played EverQuest, and we restarted a new group once, a theme group of the Spice Girls called the Spicy Girls, and I was playing a female character, oh my god, I would get hit on. People were always sending me...
You know what's really weird is that I've played MMOs for a really long time, and it never really happened. Like, I had guys hitting on me, like, every once in a while and saying, like, hey, baby, do you want some rating? And I'm just like, no, talk to the hand kind of thing. I never had, like, outright harassment. I don't know, just my personal anecdotal experience, like, outside of men being sleazy and trying to be my friend, I never got, like, harassed explicitly. Usually I just block them and stuff, but, like, whatever. Is your voice annoying? You fucking troglodyte. You can't fucking voice chat in a fucking MMO, you fucking dipshit. I'm talking about, like, in-game. I know my voice is annoying, but they didn't get to hear my voice. I'm just saying from anecdotal experience, it never really happened.
private messages and stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this what women go through online? It was super annoying. And like I said, people just kept finding new ways to do this, no matter what you did. You know, people would follow us around, the Spicy Girl group around, and just constantly ask questions. And you could turn off them being able to direct message you, and then they'd find you. One guy would follow us around.
I never had that happen. That's so strange. I don't know. I was in a server for a long time, and I just kind of blocked before the harassment. Not. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, I never really got messages like that. Maybe like if I went to Goldshire and I stood around for like an hour, I think I'd probably get like a nasty message or something. But like other than that, I don't think it happened. At least I don't remember. I'm not talking about like, oh, I had like a group of friends and then they had a group of friends that like played in a raid and then, you know, a guy would try and hit on me. I'm not talking about that. That's like natural. Like this would happen in real life. Obviously, like there's people that are creeps in every respect, but not really. Not in my experience. Maybe I just have a weird aura. Maybe I have a weird aura that people don't really want to approach me. Ultima Online was wild. Yeah, I'm saying like maybe this is like an old MMO thing.
So I'd play my Bard speed song to get away from him. He got a druid to sew him, Spirit of the Wolf, so he could keep up with us. I ended up like moving back and forth and getting him stuck on things because he had set to auto follow us. I'd get him like dragged into a river or stuck on a pillar.
See, that's smart. Or you drag them, or you drag them into lava. Make them fall off and drown themselves. I did that a couple of times to people who annoyed me. Did you ever dance for gold? No, I either scammed people or I ran raids for people that gave me gold for. Yeah, I did runs for mounts and stuff for achievements, heroic achievements. Female character at Crossroads. It was constant and gross. I've only played female characters and I've never had that happen. That's so wild to me. It's strange because I played back in like 2008 and stuff, but in Classic that never happened either. I don't know.
So we'd, disconnect him and we'd get away.
Or in the cities. I don't know.
It's always surprised me how many people did this. It wasn't a small fraction, especially early on. There were a lot of people doing it. And their fun seemed to come at everyone else's expense. So that was the worst part of it. It wasn't just that they griefed and had fun. Part of what they were doing was to make the game unfun for other people. And I got...
Well, that's their outlet. That's kind of the problem, is that some people have miserable lives, so... Sometimes people are just born that way, like they just want to be assholes.
Briefed once in EverQuest, somebody did a thing where they tricked me into doing a group teleport with them, saying they pay me on the other end, and then they didn't, and on the other end they tried to get me killed by dragging some guards onto me, and I got away, but it leaves this bad taste in your mouth, like, oh, these people are bad online. And
I don't know, maybe it's just my vibes, maybe because I'm younger. I haven't had it happen a lot, but I've never accepted a random teleport unless I checked first. Like there was a time where you could drop people in Stranglethorn to their death because they wanted to get a buff in a certain area of the game, and they'd say, okay, I'm gonna teleport you, or like whatever, like summon you to that area, and then you drop down and die and you lose everything, right? Like your buffs. Like, I don't trust, like, people like that. No, but just, it happened once. It won't happen again.
Once griefing hits anyone in your group, it affects the whole group. You log in thinking you're going to do a dungeon, and somebody got griefed and lost their gear. And now you can't do this dungeon until you go on all these side quests to try to re-gear them. Later MMOs have gotten better at this, but again, people are clever and they still find ways of griefing.
Ever played on a PvP server? It's true hell. Yes, I have played on a PvP server a lot of times. There was a time I was playing on, I can't remember, I think it was Netherwing or Yes. It was a private server for World of Warcraft. I think it was Burning Crusade, and there was an orc rogue that camped Stranglethorn Vale, the entire road up and down, for 24 hours a day. I'm not even joking. I started looking up on the forums of that private server. The guy legitimately griefed the entire zone by going up and down because he's max level and killing lobies for 24 hours a day. I'm not even kidding. Every time I logged on, if I was there leveling, he was always there and killing us. I don't know how he did it, but apparently he was so notorious in griefing that people just stopped going to that zone, but he would still be there no matter what. And I heard somewhere online he was just some European guy that lived on welfare because he didn't have a job. And all he did was grief people. I'm not even joking, man. It was an orc rogue and I hated him. I hated him so much, so I just went and leveled in another zone. Oh my god. Multiple people on one account. Maybe it could be. It could have.
And then the later one was, the last one I want to talk about was online groups always seem to attract the most toxic player bases. Or maybe single player games have toxic player bases, but they just can't interact with you. But
absolutely.
The multiplayer games do seem to attract the worst ones. And it's not just online where they're say and do all these horrible things. That you go to the, community boards and online forums and stuff, and people are just being awful there. And I know a lot of you have that lens of all companies are bad, so let's include the companies in this too. There are a lot of toxic companies involved in online games. I mean, you pay to buy the game, and then you have to pay to have a subscription to play it online, and the game is useless by itself.
Oh, and then the DLC. Hell yeah.
Then you have to pay to buy DLC, and when new stuff comes out, your group has to all have it, or you can't do it. And then they add microtransactions in on top. So, for cool clothing or armor appearances or mounts. And it's
why not put those in the game so that people play your game more? I still never understood that. Final Fantasy? Everybody does it now. You see a really cool item and you want it, you better pay up.
It's just money. It seemed like the online community has just attracted the worst of both players and companies. So probably by the mid-2010s, I've just tapped out of all of this. I've just said, I don't want to do this anymore. It coincides a little bit with when I left Carbine in 2011. And over the next few years, as I was playing these online games, I realized I don't have to be here anymore. I can't even pretend I'm doing research for my jobs because I don't have to do this. So I just stopped. And now, except for very occasional limited multiplayer games, things like Minecraft or Terraria, as examples of things I played since 2011, and some couch co-op. I love couch co-op. I wish there was more couch co-op games, where you could have someone else on the other controller and either you share.
I think the fact that he's still talking about how Ultima Online had this issue and he's just been dealing with it for like 30, 40 years. I think this is inherently something that humans just do naturally, especially behind anonymity. It's really easy to do this to think this kind of way because it's been around for so long. Yeah, it's an innate human behavior. You can't really correct it unless companies literally get directly involved.
Or the screen or it split screens. Games like that used to be super fun. And when you're playing with someone who's right next to you, you're not going to grief each other. At least, not the people I.
Does this guy have siblings or not? Because my brother definitely fucking griefed me when we were little kids. Only a little bit, and then you start crying to mom, and false all grief my friends and family. Didn't some guy, one of our chatters, say that that their friend griefs their own mom or some shit in a guild? Yeah. I don't know. I don't believe that. I think there's just some human nature thing that you can't really switch off when you play video games.
Play with.
Because
of that, now, as of, mid-2020s, I'm almost exclusively offline single player games. And I know I'm not alone in this. I don't know what the fixes are for this.
I never got in WoW due to the griefing there, so I always played EQ and EQ2. But EverQuest has worse griefing than WoW, and when you die, you lose everything. If you die in a PvP fight to some level 60, you can res and run away and not lose like fucking a billion worth of experience or lose your body with stuff on it. I don't get that at all, but I mean, you do you. I think EverQuest is way more punishing than World of Warcraft. It's like the baby version of the game.
Because no matter what companies implement, there seem to be players who are clever and circumvent it. And like I said, it's not just the players. A lot of companies are doing things that I'm just like, I don't want to take part in this anymore. I don't want to play a game that's constantly upselling me on new DLCs and new items. I mean, what's it going to be next? Patches that you have to pay for? Don't
give them ideas, please. For the love of God, please don't give them ideas.
It's become kind of a gaming nightmare for me. So I just play offline single player games now.
I mean, he's an old man. I don't really blame him, to be honest. I don't. He's way older than all of us, chat. Yeah, he's way older than all of us. He played EQ and Ultima and some other games, and he's just tired of griefing. He's probably 50 years old. Yeah, he's like 50 years old. Maybe I'll change my opinion when I'm fucking 50 trillion years old and I've seen all that shit. Lappies! Man, was there when the book was written? Yes, he played the MMOs that, like, I didn't play because they're too old. Like, I didn't even know about EverQuest until I played WoW, and then people told me that EverQuest was it. EverQuest inspired WoW in a lot of ways. He's 59? Damn.